A crowd had gathered outside the private conference hall. Security was tight. Journalists whispered among themselves, their cameras ready, their curiosity barely contained. No one could understand why Elon Musk, one of the busiest men on the planet, had suddenly cleared his schedule for an unknown woman. Inside the hall, Elon sat across from her. She was frail, her breathing labored, but there was an intensity in her eyes that made her seem larger than life. "Why me?" Musk asked, his tone neutral, but his curiosity evident. The woman smiled. "Because you're the only one who can make this happen." Musk had met thousands of people before, but there was something unsettling about this meeting. It wasn't about money, fame, or even a business pitch. It wasn't about making a dying woman happy with an autograph or a handshake. She had a purpose. She wasn't asking for herself. She was asking for something much, much bigger. Musk leaned forward, intrigued. "All right. I'm listening." She took a deep breath, choosing her words carefully. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said something that made Musk's expression shift instantly. For the first time in a long time, he was speechless. What she had just told him would change everything. To be continued. The silence between them stretched. The weight of her words pressed down on the room, making the air feel heavier. For a man who had built rockets, revolutionized transportation, and faced relentless scrutiny from the world, Elon Musk was not easily shaken. Yet, in that moment, he was at a loss for words. He studied the woman in front of him. She was young, too young to be facing the kind of fate she had been dealt. The oxygen tank beside her let out a quiet hiss as she inhaled, her fingers gripping the edge of her chair with what little strength she had left. But it wasn't weakness he saw in her, it was determination. Finally, Musk leaned back, crossing his arms. "You want me to do what?" The woman smiled faintly. "I want you to help me finish what I started." Her words lingered in the air, like an unsolved mystery. Musk exhaled sharply, through his nose. "Look, I get a lot of requests. Some are wild, some are inspiring, and some are just straight up ridiculous. But this? This is unusual. It's important," she insisted. "And I don't have much time left." Musk glanced at his assistant, who stood a few feet away, arms folded, eyes flicking between them. They were both used to requests, but this wasn't a business deal. It wasn't a publicity stunt. It was something deeper. Musk frowned. "Why me?" She let out a soft chuckle, though it quickly turned into a cough. "Because you're the only one who can make people listen. And you're the only one with enough stubbornness to make it happen." Musk rubbed his temple. "All right. Start from the beginning." The woman adjusted herself, trying to sit straighter, despite the obvious discomfort. "I used to be an engineer," she began. "Not at your level, but I had dreams. Big ones. I wanted to make a difference, just like you." Musk didn't respond, but his eyes stayed locked on her, listening. "I worked on a project. Something small, something no one cared about. But I did. Because I knew it could change lives." Musk raised an eyebrow. "What kind of project?" "A sustainable energy system," she answered, watching him closely. "Not for big corporations. Not for governments. For people who needed it the most." Musk's expression remained unreadable. "I built a prototype," she continued, her voice steady, despite the fatigue creeping in. "It could provide clean, unlimited energy to remote areas. No power grid required. No dependence on corporations. It was simple. Beautifully simple." Musk tilted his head. "And?" She exhaled, her expression darkening. "No one cared." He remained quiet. "Companies weren't interested because they couldn't profit from it," she continued. "Governments didn't want it because it didn't fit their infrastructure. Investors saw no return. And so, it died. I was shut out. My research, my blueprints, everything, buried." But I never stopped believing in it. Her eyes burned with something fierce, something undeniable. Musk considered her words. He had spent his life battling bureaucracy, pushing against the weight of established industries that thrived on keeping things the way they were. He knew what it was like to be told something wasn't possible, until it was. So, he said slowly, "You want me to fund your project?" She shook her head. "No. I want you to make sure it survives after I'm gone." The air between them shifted. Musk had expected a plea for money, for personal help. Instead, this was something else. Something bigger. She wasn't asking for herself, she was asking for a legacy. She leaned forward, her voice firm. "I don't need charity. I don't need sympathy. I just need someone who has the power to keep this alive. Someone who won't let it die just because it's inconvenient." Musk tapped his fingers against the table. His mind was already running a million calculations. Could this be real? Could her project actually work? Or was this just another pipe dream that people clung to in their final days? But something about her, something about the way she spoke, made him think twice. "I don't make decisions based on emotion," he said finally. "If this works, if it's scalable, if it actually does what you say it does, then maybe. But I need to see the data." She smiled faintly, reaching into a worn leather bag beside her chair. With weak fingers, she slid a small flash drive across the table. "It's all in there," she whispered. "The research. The failures. The breakthroughs. Everything." Musk hesitated before picking it up. He studied the small device in his hand. A lifetime of work compressed into something so small, so fragile. He looked back at her. "What happens if I say no?" Her expression didn't change. "Then I die knowing I tried." A lump formed in his throat. He wasn't expecting that answer. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then, Musk nodded slowly. "I'll look into it." She let out a shaky breath, her body visibly relaxing. "That's all I ask." Musk pocketed the flash drive and stood. "I don't make promises. But if this is what you say it is, then I won't let it die." She smiled, though there was something sad in her eyes. "Thank you." Musk gave her one last look before turning to leave. His assistant followed, barely able to keep up as Musk walked briskly down the hallway, his mind already racing. "This could be a waste of time," his assistant muttered. "There's no way to know if, get me my best engineers," Musk cut in. "We're going to find out." As they stepped into the elevator, Musk felt something he hadn't felt in years. A strange, unfamiliar sense of responsibility. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he knew, this wasn't just another project. This was something more. Something personal. Something unstoppable. The air inside SpaceX headquarters buzzed with controlled chaos. Engineers moved quickly through the halls, voices murmuring over phone calls and tablet screens filled with complex designs and calculations. But inside Elon Musk's office, a different kind of storm brewed, a silent one. He sat alone at his desk, eyes locked onto the screen, scanning the files from the flash drive the woman had given him. Blueprints, test results, raw data, all meticulously organized, yet untouched for years. The deeper he dove into her work, the more his expression changed. His fingers drummed against the desk as he read through her notes, tracing each calculation with the precision of a man who had spent his life pushing the limits of what was possible. And then he saw it. Buried within the files was something that made him pause. A breakthrough. The design she had created wasn't just theoretical. It worked. The technology, if implemented correctly, could completely disrupt the current energy system. It wasn't just another renewable energy project, it was scalable, decentralized, and nearly impossible for corporations to monopolize. No wonder she had been shut down. Musk leaned back in his chair, exhaling sharply. He wasn't easily impressed. But this? This was different. The weight of her request settled deeper onto his shoulders. This wasn't just about honoring the wish of a dying woman. This was about something bigger, something that had the potential to shake the world. His assistant knocked lightly on the door before stepping inside. "Sir, the engineering team is ready for you." Musk nodded, standing swiftly. "Bring them to the conference room. Now." An idea that could change everything. The conference room was filled with some of the sharpest minds in the industry. Scientists, physicists, and engineers sat around the long table. Their attention focused on Musk as he set his laptop down and connected it to the large display screen. Without any introduction, he pulled up the woman's research. "What do you see?" he asked, his tone neutral. The room fell silent as the engineers analyzed the designs. Some leaned forward, their brows furrowed in deep concentration, while others exchanged uncertain glances. After a long pause, one of the lead engineers spoke up. "This is innovative. But it doesn't make sense. If this is what it claims to be, why hasn't it been developed already?" Musk's gaze was steady. "Because no one with the power to build it wanted it to exist." The tension in the room thickened. Another scientist cleared his throat. "It's theoretically possible, but we'd need to run simulations. If these numbers hold up, this would be one of the most disruptive energy models ever created." Musk crossed his arms. "Then run the tests. I want results. Fast." An unfinished dream. As the team worked, Musk found himself thinking about the woman. He hadn't heard from her since their meeting. She had made her request, handed him her life's work, and then disappeared. Something about that unsettled him. He picked up his phone and called his assistant. "Find out where she is." It didn't take long for the answer to come back. She was in hospice care. Her condition had worsened faster than expected. Musk felt something tighten in his chest. He had met countless people, heard thousands of stories, and been asked for help in ways he couldn't always provide. But this felt different. He made a decision. "Get the car ready," he said. "I'm going to see her." A visit she never expected. The hospice was quiet, the air thick with a mixture of antiseptic and the gentle hum of medical machines. Musk walked through the halls, his presence drawing whispered stares from patients and staff alike. When he reached her room, he hesitated. Inside, she lay still, her body frail, her breathing shallow. A nurse sat beside her, adjusting the drip. Musk cleared his throat, and the nurse looked up, startled. "Oh," she said, quickly standing. "I didn't expect." Neither had the woman in the bed. Her eyes fluttered open, struggling to focus. But when she saw him, a faint, weak smile formed on her lips. "You came," she whispered. Musk pulled up a chair and sat beside her. "I looked at your work." She chuckled softly, though it quickly turned into a cough. "And?" He met her gaze. "You were right." Her expression softened. She had known, deep down, that her research was valid. But hearing it from him, seeing the conviction in his eyes, made all the difference. Musk hesitated before speaking again. "My team is testing it now. If it works, I'll make sure it sees the light of day." Tears formed in her eyes, though she was too weak to wipe them away. "Thank you," she whispered. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then, with great effort, she reached for a small notebook on the bedside table. Her fingers trembled as she flipped through the pages, before stopping on a handwritten letter. She slid it toward Musk. "Read it when I'm gone," she said softly. Musk stared at the letter, something heavy settling in his chest. The final goodbye. Musk stayed longer than he expected. They talked, about life, about regrets, about the future she wouldn't get to see. As he stood to leave, she reached out and gently grasped his wrist. "One last thing," she said weakly. Musk leaned in. "Promise me, you won't let them bury this." His jaw tightened. "I promise." She smiled, a peaceful expression crossing her face. For the first time in a long time, she wasn't afraid. Musk left the hospice with the letter in his pocket and a determination burning in his chest. 2 days later, he received the news. She was gone. But her story wasn't over. Not yet. Elon Musk sat alone in his office, the letter still sealed in his hand. The weight of it felt heavier than it should have, like it carried more than just words. His fingers ran over the edges, hesitating. She was gone. The woman who had sat across from him, determined, fearless despite knowing her time was running out, had now become just another name in the vast timeline of the world. And yet, Musk couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't really gone. Her work, her vision, the fire in her eyes, it all lingered. Taking a deep breath, he carefully unfolded the letter. The handwriting was delicate but strong, as if she had forced herself to write with a steady hand despite the pain. Elon, if you're reading this, then my time has come. And if you've kept your word, then you've already started looking into my research. That means I was right to believe in you. I didn't choose you just because you're a billionaire or because you're one of the most powerful men in the world. I chose you because you're stubborn. Because when someone tells you something is impossible, you make it possible. I needed someone who wouldn't just invest in this project, I needed someone who would fight for it. But before you take this forward, you need to know something. They will try to stop you. They tried to stop me. They buried my research, discredited my findings, made sure I couldn't secure funding. I was nobody, a young woman with an idea too disruptive for the system. They silenced me because I was powerless. But you? You are not powerless. So if you do this, do it knowing that you will face resistance. There will be people who will want to see this fail. But I hope, no, I believe, you won't let them win. Because this isn't about me. It isn't even about you. It's about everyone. Thank you for listening to me that day. Thank you for seeing me not as just another dying patient, but as someone who could still make a difference. I hope this letter finds you well. And I hope you never stop fighting for what matters. Musk folded the letter and placed it on his desk. His fingers tapped against the wood, a familiar rhythm when he was deep in thought. She was right, if this was as big as he suspected, there would be pushback. But that never stopped him before. Testing the impossible over the next several days, Musk's engineers ran simulations, stress tests, and theoretical applications of the woman's research. The deeper they went, the more convinced they became. This is unlike anything we've seen before, one of his lead scientists told him during a late-night briefing. If we can refine it, we could change global energy infrastructure. Musk leaned forward. How soon can we build a prototype? The scientist hesitated. That's the problem. We have everything we need, except one component. A rare material that isn't widely produced. If we don't get it, we can't complete the design. Musk narrowed his eyes. Who controls it? The answer made his jaw tighten. A handful of powerful corporations. The same corporations that had dismissed her work. The same corporations that would do anything to keep their hold on the energy market. And now, they were the only ones standing in his way. The resistance begins the moment word got out that Musk was looking into an alternative energy model. Things changed. His private meetings with scientists were suddenly leaked. Investors began questioning his priorities. Media outlets started running articles suggesting that his focus was drifting from his existing businesses. And then came the real attack. One of his research facilities was raided by government regulators, an unexpected audit. A few days later, false reports surfaced, accusing his engineers of violating environmental standards. Musk wasn't naive. He had faced resistance before. But this was different. This wasn't just about him. This was about keeping something buried. And the timing was too perfect to be a coincidence. A decision that would shock the world one night, as Musk sat in his office, his phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Stop pursuing this. It's bigger than you. He stared at the screen. A threat? A warning? He didn't care. Instead of backing down, Musk did what he always did. He pushed forward. Going public the next morning, he called for a press conference. The world expected him to announce a new Tesla model or a breakthrough in space travel. Instead, he walked onto the stage, placed the woman's research on the podium, and did something no one saw coming. He exposed everything. He revealed the project, the technology, the roadblocks, the corporations that had buried it. And then, he made his final move. He announced that, effective immediately, all research related to her energy model would be open-sourced. Anyone, anywhere in the moment he made the research open source, the world erupted into a frenzy of mixed reactions. Some hailed him as a visionary, the man who had single-handedly broken the grip of corporate energy monopolies. Others called him reckless, saying he had no idea what he had unleashed. But what no one saw coming was the retaliation. It started subtly, financial analysts questioning Tesla's stock stability, news articles speculating about Musk's mental state, whispers of erratic decision-making from anonymous sources. Then, things escalated. Regulators hit SpaceX with unexpected fines. Tesla's supply chain suddenly faced unforeseen delays. Several of Musk's key business partners started pulling out of deals without explanation. It was clear. This wasn't just a reaction, this was an orchestrated effort to make him back down. But Musk had no intention of backing down. The battle he never expected inside the Tesla headquarters, Musk stood before a room filled with his top advisors. The mood was tense. His legal team had just finished outlining the growing list of lawsuits being filed against him, intellectual property disputes, labor law violations, safety concerns. Some of them were ridiculous, clearly designed to slow him down. A few of his executives looked uneasy. Elon, one of them started carefully, "We need to consider our position. You've made a lot of enemies." Musk leaned back in his chair. "I don't care about enemies. I care about results." Another executive hesitated before speaking. "Look, I get it. This woman's research, it's brilliant. But we don't control it anymore. You gave it away. And now the people who do control the infrastructure? They're going to do everything they can to bury it." Musk nodded slowly, processing the words. "Then we'll just have to make sure it can't be buried," he said. A few executives exchanged uneasy glances. Elon. His CFO hesitated. "They're not just targeting the company. They're targeting you. If this continues, you could lose everything." Musk met his gaze without flinching. "Then let them come." The unexpected twist: while the corporations worked behind the scenes to suppress the technology, something else was happening. Scientists and independent researchers, people Musk had never even met, began replicating the designs. They were small teams, working out of makeshift labs, university research centers, and even their own garages. And then, the first breakthrough happened. A group of engineers in India successfully built the first working prototype using the open-source data. They posted a video demonstration online. Then another team in Germany did the same. Then Japan. Then Canada. The momentum was unstoppable. Governments took notice. Public demand grew. Energy monopolies started losing control of the narrative. The research they had tried so hard to bury was now spreading faster than they could contain. Musk saw the reports flooding in and felt something he hadn't in a long time: satisfaction. The woman had been right. This was bigger than him. And now, it was too late to stop it. A dangerous warning one evening, as Musk sat in his private office, his assistant knocked and entered hesitantly. "Sir, you have a visitor." Musk looked up, frowning. "Who?" The assistant shifted uncomfortably. "Someone who says they have information you need." Musk sighed. "Let them in." A man in a dark suit stepped in, his demeanor calm but his eyes sharp. He was older, with a presence that suggested he wasn't just another businessman. Musk gestured to a chair. "Make this quick. I have work to do." The man didn't sit. Instead, he placed a small folder on the desk. "You're making dangerous enemies, Mr. Musk." Musk smirked. "I make enemies all the time. What's new?" The man's expression didn't change. "These are different. You're stepping on the toes of people who don't play fair. People who don't just destroy businesses, they destroy lives." Musk opened the folder. Inside were surveillance photos. Photos of him. Photos of his children. His homes. His closest friends. His smirk faded. The man leaned in slightly. "This is your last warning. Drop the project. Before it's too late." Musk looked up, his expression unreadable. Then, with deliberate calm, he slid the folder back toward the man. "You see, that's the difference between you and me," Musk said. "You think threats will stop me. They won't." The man studied him for a moment, then sighed. "I figured you'd say that." He turned and walked out. Musk exhaled, running a hand through his hair. This was no longer just about business. This was war. The moment of truth. Musk's mind raced. He needed to move fast. If they were threatening him personally, that meant one thing: they were getting desperate. And when powerful people got desperate, they made mistakes. He picked up his phone and made a call. "How fast can we get a public demonstration up and running?" His chief engineer's voice came through, tense but excited. "The prototype is ready. We just need the right venue." "Then we go big," Musk said. "Book the largest stage possible. And make sure the whole world is watching." The world watches. A week later, Musk stood in front of a crowd of thousands. The cameras were live. The eyes of the world were on him. Behind him, the prototype, a sleek, compact energy module, stood as a symbol of everything they had fought for. Musk took the microphone. "This," he said, gesturing to the device, "is the future they don't want you to see." The audience murmured. This isn't just another power source. This isn't about profits. This is about people, about giving every person on this planet the ability to generate their own energy without depending on corporations who profit off scarcity. He turned to the engineers beside him. "Turn it on." The device hummed to life. And then, something extraordinary happened. The massive LED screen behind Musk lit up, powered completely by the device. The crowd gasped. No cables. No hidden wires. Pure, decentralized energy. Musk smirked. "They told you this was impossible. They told you this wouldn't work. But here it is. And now, it belongs to the world." The crowd erupted into applause. The corporations had lost. And the woman's final wish? It had just become reality. The unfinished chapter. As the event ended, Musk stood backstage, watching the news reports flood in. The threats hadn't stopped. But it didn't matter anymore. Because the truth was out. He pulled out the letter one last time and read her words again. Then, folding it carefully, he whispered, "I kept my promise." Somewhere, somehow, he liked to believe she had hurt him. And maybe, just maybe, she was smiling. A promise kept. The world was still reacting to Elon Musk's stunning public demonstration. The energy module had worked flawlessly, proving to billions of people that a decentralized power source was no longer science fiction, it was reality. The reaction was immediate. Social media exploded with discussions, hashtags like #FreeEnergyForAll and #MuskRevolution trending worldwide. Scientists, engineers, and independent researchers began reaching out, eager to collaborate. The public was hopeful, inspired. But behind closed doors, the ones who had fought to suppress this technology were preparing their next move. They had failed to bury it. Now, they would try to control it. The aftermath. Inside SpaceX headquarters, Musk sat in his conference room, watching news reports on the massive screens lining the walls. Elon Musk's latest move has sent shockwaves through the energy sector. Major corporations are scrambling to respond, as experts predict this breakthrough could dismantle the traditional power industry. Another channel showed a debate between economists. This could disrupt global markets, one analyst warned. Musk might think he's doing the world a favor, but removing corporate control over energy could create chaos, his opponent cut in. Or it could free billions of people from corporate greed. Isn't that worth it? Musk muted the screens. He didn't need the noise. His focus was on what came next. His assistant entered, looking tense. Elon, you need to see this. She handed him a tablet. It displayed an internal memo, one that had been leaked from a major energy conglomerate. It wasn't about shutting him down anymore. It was about buying him out. The offer a few hours later, Musk sat across from a group of suited executives inside a high-rise conference room. The skyline behind them glittered with city lights, but inside, the atmosphere was cold. One of the men leaned forward. Let's be direct, Mr. Musk. We know what you've done. We know what you've created. And we're willing to make you an offer you can't refuse. Musk smirked. You're assuming I can't refuse it. The man chuckled. Let's just say, the numbers will speak for themselves. A briefcase was placed on the table. One of the executives opened it, revealing a document with an eye-watering sum at the bottom. $500 billion, the man said smoothly. You sign, and we take over distribution. You walk away a legend. Your work is preserved. Your legacy is intact. Musk barely glanced at the document. And what happens to the technology? The man's smile never wavered. We'll integrate it responsibly. We'll ensure a smooth transition so that global markets remain stable. Musk scoffed. So you'll patent it, lock it up, and sell it at a premium. The executives exchanged looks, but none denied it. Musk leaned back. No deal. Their smiles faltered. You don't understand. Another executive said, lowering his voice. This isn't just a business offer. It's an opportunity to protect yourself. To protect your companies. To protect the people you care about. Musk's expression hardened. Was that a threat? Of course not. The man chuckled, but there was no humor in it. Just a word of advice. Musk stood. I don't sell out. And I don't break promises. He turned and walked away, leaving the stunned executives behind. As he exited the building, he pulled out his phone and made a call. Get the team together, he said. We're going bigger. The counterattack. Musk knew that rejecting the deal meant war. The corporations weren't going to let him distribute this technology freely. They would attack his credibility. His businesses. His entire reputation. So he moved first. Within 24 hours, Tesla announced a bold new initiative, Tesla Energy Freedom, a program to manufacture and distribute the energy modules at cost, ensuring that no corporation could control them. The announcement sent shockwaves through the market. Governments, caught between corporate pressure and public demand, were forced to respond. Some praised Musk's efforts. Others called for regulations, citing economic stability concerns. And then, the worst happened. Musk's legal team received a notice. His factories were being shut down. The last stand. The message was clear. If Musk wouldn't sell, they would make it impossible for him to produce. But Musk had faced impossible odds before. And he always found a way. Within hours, he live-streamed a message to the world. They're trying to stop this. They don't want you to have control over your own energy. But here's the truth, they can't stop it. He then dropped the ultimate bombshell. Not only was Tesla producing these modules, he was sharing every blueprint, every manufacturing detail, every assembly guide online. Anyone, anywhere, could build their own. The world stood still. It was a checkmate move. No one, not corporations, not governments, could stop what had already begun. A letter never sent days later, as Musk sat in his office, his assistant entered with an old, faded envelope. "We found this among her things," she said quietly. "It was addressed to you, but she never sent it." Musk took the envelope, his heart heavy. The letter inside was short. "Elon, I don't know if you'll ever read this. But if you do, I hope you know how much this means to me. I spent so long fighting for this, for a future I wasn't sure I'd ever see. And maybe I won't. But that's okay. Because I believe in you. You're the only person crazy enough, stubborn enough, and brilliant enough to make this happen. Thank you for listening. Thank you for not turning away. No matter what happens, just know, you changed the world." Musk folded the letter, swallowing the lump in his throat. She had believed in him when no one else had. And now, the world was changing because of her. Because of one woman who refused to be silenced. Because of a promise he had kept. A legacy that could not be stopped. In the weeks that followed, the energy modules began spreading worldwide. People in remote villages who had never known electricity now had power. Families no longer had to choose between affording energy and affording food. And Musk? He didn't profit from any of it. But he had never cared about money. He had cared about something far greater. A single wish. A dying woman's hope. And now, the world would never be the same again. A legacy that lives on the world had changed. What started as one woman's dying wish had turned into a revolution. The energy modules, once just blueprints hidden in a dying woman's hands, were now being assembled in garages, small factories, and universities around the globe. What had once been a suppressed innovation had become unstoppable. But Elon Musk wasn't celebrating. Not yet. Because the battle wasn't over. The final blow, despite overwhelming public support, the corporations that had monopolized global energy for decades were still trying to fight back. Massive lawsuits flooded Tesla and SpaceX, citing everything from intellectual property theft to national security risks. Government officials, pressured by corporate lobbyists, demanded strict regulations on the new technology, claiming it needed oversight before reaching the masses. The pushback was relentless. But Musk had seen this strategy before. Delay. Distract. Discredit. It was their last move. And it wasn't going to work. A game they couldn't win. Musk didn't wait for their approval. He accelerated production. Factories, once used to build electric cars and spacecraft, were now repurposed to mass-produce the energy modules. Tesla stores, once reserved for high-end vehicles, became distribution centers for free energy devices. And then, Musk made the move no one expected. He set up community-run factories in developing nations, ensuring that those who needed the technology the most wouldn't have to rely on corporate supply chains. The more they tried to stop him, the faster he moved. And the people? They stood behind him. Because this wasn't about profits. This was about freedom. The end of an era. Months passed. Corporations that once controlled the world's energy markets saw their stock prices plummet. Consumers, once forced to pay whatever price they were given, now had choices. For the first time in history, electricity was becoming a human right, not a luxury. And just like that, the old system, built on greed and control, collapsed. The world had entered a new era. And one woman's dream had become reality. One last visit. On a quiet evening, Musk stepped out of his Tesla Cybertruck and walked toward a small cemetery. The sun had dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in hues of deep purple and gold. He stopped in front of a simple gravestone. It bore no grand titles. No elaborate engravings. Just a name. And a small phrase beneath it. One voice can change the world. Musk pulled out the letter, the final one she had written, the one he had found weeks after her passing. He read it one last time. Then, he smiled. "I kept my promise," he whispered. And as he stood there, the wind rustling through the trees, he felt something. Not sadness. Not regret. But peace. Because some legacies never fade. And some promises? They last forever. The life lesson: the world is built on voices that refuse to be silenced. The ones who see injustice and stand against it. The ones who dream beyond what is possible and make it real. The ones who know that true power isn't about wealth or control, it's about changing lives. She wasn't famous. She wasn't a billionaire. She wasn't a world leader. She was just one person. And yet, her voice, her final wish, had changed the world. So if there's one lesson to take from this story, it's this: never underestimate the power of a single idea. Because one person, one dream, one moment of courage can change everything.